Hey, sister girl.
Hello.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Hey, Sister Girl. We're so happy to be back here with you tonight. We are going to start with a message from G.
Hey, sister girl, welcome to a new episode. But if you missed it, last week we covered some phenomenal things. We talked about if you were new to carnivore, what should actually be in your kitchen. Robin shared some great things. We had a guest, Terry. She taught us if we're traveling, what we should carry and where we can stop. And then y'all know DeNitra came behind that and shared everything that we should be asking our doctors for in regards to our health, what tests we should be looking for. Oh, she broke it down. And so this week, we have a new guest, but let me say this. Have you ever felt like you missed your window to heal? Like your weight is too high, the damage is too deep, and the doctors, you or your doctor may have really given up on you. You just feel like your weight is just out of control. If you've tried it all, come on now, pills, powders, portion control, and some even surgery, and somehow you still don't feel like yourself, this is the episode for you. What does that mean? You better call your girlfriend, go ahead and bring her in, share this, because this is the episode for you. Tonight, we're going to have some real stories. And guess what? Like always, we're going to start with me. This was me on the standard American diet. This is what I looked like, up, down. And most of us know I was even larger than that. But one of the things that we talk about what we should have in our bodies, no more than 1 teaspoon of sugar a day. So watch this here. If I showed this to you, you would say, that is healthy. Very good. Beans, nuts. Go ahead and grab it. But now let's go to this. I'm saying you should only have, and your body is telling you should only have 1 teaspoon of sugar a day. So now look at this. If you're only supposed to have 1 teaspoon, look at your food choices. What are you going to choose to eat? Look at this. You are at a function. They have a charcuterie board, but you're only to have 1 teaspoon of sugar today. That's not what I'm saying, baby. That's how God created us. See how well we are off track? But watch this here. What about your coffee and your tea? 1 teaspoon of sugar a day. So now, if I give this to you, I want you to take a look and see what on there you can eat to stay within your 1 teaspoon of sugar a day. You take a look at that. Well, for me, I would be doing that ground beef, that steak, that shrimp, them eggs over there for 1 teaspoon of sugar a day. And let me show you how you can find out if you've eaten too much sugar. If you look like any of this or know someone, that's a representation. And even my picture is on there down to the left with me taking a selfie. That is entirely too much sugar in your body. You're having a reaction to sugar, and it shows up like that. But if we did this, y'all would be ready to call animal control. But most of us look like that. So please stay tuned to this because we have another guest host. Thank you, Bewindi, for sitting in for me. Y'all, I'll be back next week. But in the meantime and in between time, check this show out. You're going
Awesome. Welcome, Wendy. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for being here, Bewindi. So, ladies, hey, sister girl, you all know me. I'm DeNitra, your advocator, coach, educator. Soon, you all will recognize that advocator, coach, educator stands for ACE. That's what I want to be known at some point. I'm your ace in the hole. And tonight, we're not just talking about weight loss. We are talking about leaving a legacy in every area of our lives. We talk about how do we leave a legacy. So tonight, we're going to talk about what it looks like to leave a healing legacy. You don't need another diet. You just need to make a decision. Of course, we recognize at this point that we've been lied to. We've been told to eat less. move more, take a pill, have surgery, and just wait for the scale to change. But if I told you your healing doesn't start on the scale, it starts in your cells. Metabolic healing isn't just about you, it's about your energy, your sleep, your hormones, your mood, and the people who are watching your choices every single day. Tonight, I am so honored that you all will get the opportunity to meet my friend and client, Bewindi. Bewindi is a woman who made a decision. She became super decisive about her health and healing journey. She said yes to her health. She said yes to eating real food. And guess what? She's not only down 22 plus pounds, she's showing up differently as a mother, as an advocate, and now has become a major light in her own community. You'll see how a 90-day metabolic makeover didn't just change her, it changed her entire family. That's what I mean when I say healing, it's a family affair. Y'all know that song? It's a family affair. So tonight, it's a family affair. So my role tonight, prior to bringing Bewindi on, is to continue to reinforce to you guys what it means to be on a metabolic healing journey. And remember, I am an educator. I am a teacher, so I'm going to show up teaching and educating. So what is metabolic dysfunction? It is not just about gaining weight. I often say that insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, it doesn't have a size, but it does have a look. And that look is in line with insulin resistance and its inflammation. And so, where do you see this inflammation happening at? You see this inflammation happening in your eyes, in your hormonal imbalance. For some people, it shows up as, for me, it was an autoimmune issue. For other people, it's high blood pressure. For other people, it shows up as type 2 diabetes. And you all know, whenever you hear me say pre-diabetes, right behind that, what do we say here? Don't let the pre fool you, right? Do not let the pre fool you. So this means you are metabolically unwell, right? And one of the first things that I super love about Bewindi is that she was able to identify as being sick. The first thing that we have to do is recognize that we are not well. The statistics tell us that 93% of Americans are metabolically unwell, which means that only 77% of people are walking around with a body that is functioning properly. And I often ask, which statistic are you in? I can confess today that I'm in the 93. I'm moving up in the 93, but I'm yet in the 93. Bewindi was able to say the same thing about herself, is that I am not well. I want to get well. I want to get on my healing journey. And one of the first things that we did together was figure out her markers. So that's the first thing I'm going to say to you all tonight. And you're going to hear us talk about that a little bit, is you must understand your markers. No longer can you continue to go to the doctor and say things like, my doctor said all my numbers are good. What in the world does that mean? And Bewindi is very candid. She's very free because she wants to be able to help. And she'll share that together we were able to identify her pre-diabetic status. She has a couple of doctors, labs that she had, but together, in our time together, we were able to discover that where her numbers were sitting was pre-diabetic. And anyone who is in the pre-diabetic range, you are also insulin resistant, right? Insulin resistance means that insulin is working overtime in your body. Y'all not getting along good, and it literally has basically shut down on you because it had to go get a lot of more insulin to keep the sugars low. You just heard G say that our bodies can only manage 1 teaspoon of sugar. And so we say that so often that I think that people really do not really conceive of what that is. So G put a picture up, but I just want you all to think about when you were a kid and you used a spoon to eat your sugar, to eat your cereal. That little small spoon, not the big tablespoon, right? We had a tablespoon and a teaspoon. That teaspoon is all the body can manage. When you have more than that in sugar in your body in any form, then you are developing insulin resistance. And so tonight we want to be able to deal with that. So you need that marker. You need to understand what your A1C is. And not most doctors are going to say they use the A1C to just say if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic or not. And we're saying tonight that we have to use that number for more than that. The 5.7 is where the doctor would say that you're in pre-diabetic range. We say starting at 5 with some other markers to go with that, that you're insulin resistant. If your waist circumference is large. So for all of us that have bellies and we call them fupas and name them, that is a sign of insulin resistance. This darkness in our eyes, the skin tags that continue to form on your body. Some people say to me, oh, I've had these all my life. Okay, perhaps you've been insulin resistant all your life. Because skin tags are a sign that sugar is not being properly digested in your body. And so this is your body fighting. When you hear us say inflammation, it's just like punching somebody in the eye, and it's this redness that happens. There's this swelling that happens. This is the same thing that is happening to us when we are inflamed. And so the goal is to get away from being insulin resistant. And so I want to show you a couple of pictures with Bewindi's permission so that you can continue to see a physical manifestation. I've shared mine. Robin has shared hers. I think Robin has more pictures to share today. You've seen mine. If you haven't, go to my website. And then we are looking at things that we take lightly because we live with it every day. We have normalized it. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. Hang on. Stay with me. All right, let me figure out what I'm not doing right here. Okay, let me go back out for 1 second and then go to present. Okay, I see it now. All right, here we go. Are you all able to see my screen? Is that a yes? Okay, because I can't see you all anymore. So this is one picture of Bewindi. We started our journey together in early February. The picture on the left was a picture that Bewindi sent to me. I said, hey, just send me a quick selfie. We were talking this weekend. I said, hey, send me a quick selfie. And we're just looking at these changes that appear to be subtle, but you can see some distinct changes that have happened. This means that we are becoming less insulin resistant. The goal is always to become insulin sensitive. So we call this transformation from inflammation. The idea is that we start to reduce inflammation from our bodies. Here's another picture of Bewindi. This one, again, sent me early in her journey, same pants. If you look on the left-hand side, this was on February the 11th when this picture was taken. Again, we were having this conversation over the weekend. Hey, can you put that outfit back on and send it to me? And you can see the changes. This isn't a 90-day. We call it a 90-day metabolic makeover. Okay? All right, if you keep going. Now, this picture on the left is a much older picture, and Bewindi will talk more about her full journey. But the other picture is a picture that we took. I took this picture of Bewindi on Friday. We did a walk and talk to close out our metabolic makeover. And that's a picture of her on Friday versus this picture that she'll talk about. And then when I met with Bewindi for one of our first times meeting in person, I was talking to her about the changes in her skin. And again, these are things that we kind of think are normal. And you can see the changes, the subtle changes that are starting to happen as she changes what she eats, how that is having an impact on her skin. All right, I'm gonna stop share. And so we want to keep reinforcing for you guys insulin resistance in a way that is real. We come here with real stories about what's happening with us. And so the last things that I want to share before I turn it over to Bewindi to share herself is the markers that you want to ask your doctor about. And I think I'm starting to say this weekly is you want to ask the doctor for a fasting insulin. What is that going to tell you? Are you making too much insulin just to process your food? So each time your body eats sugar, carbohydrates, whether it's plants, whether it's the sweet, tasty kind, whether it's a baked potato, anything that is plant-based is going to be sugar-based. It's not just about cookies and cakes, right? All ultra-processed foods start out as plants. Is it the seed oils? Is it the breading you're eating? When you are taking in food, your body immediately is going to wake up insulin. That fasting insulin will tell you if it is going to have to get more insulin. The A1C, on the other hand, is are you walking the line of diabetes and don't even know it? Right? So the A1C is going to predict whether you are pre-diabetic and whether you are diabetic. So you hear people say things like, hey, you got a touch of sugar. Oh, the doctor said I was borderline. Oh, I got time. I'm watching it. I am changing what I eat, right? And I do my head like this is because this is how people talk to me when I ask them these questions, right? And so I'm saying it to you to say, like, this is not a bold place to stand in when you learn that your A1C is a 5.6, a 5.7. This is not a bold stance to take about I'm not diabetic yet. Prediabetes is actually a culminating diagnosis from 10 years of running high sugar. It has taken you 10 years to get that diagnosis. You also want to ask your doctor about a CRP, that's a C-reactive protein. It will tell you how inflamed you are, right? Most doctors are extremely concerned and worried about your overall lipid panel, and they say that your LDL cholesterol is high, and they immediately want to put you on a statin. And what we've been teaching here is that a statin is not where we want to go. And why don't we want to go to a statin? We don't want to go to a statin because the statin is going to lower your cholesterol. Your body needs cholesterol. What your doctor should be more concerned about is how your A1C and how insulin is working. This is where you advocate for yourself. And lastly, your scale won't tell you any of this, but your labs will. It is so crucial that you all are getting your labs. Now, Bewindi made a big decision at the beginning. For me and our practice at Nutritional Knowledge, we do not subscribe to a diet. I am carnivore-ish on this show. You hear us talk about carnivore a lot. All of my clients that I work with are not necessarily carnivore. What we want you to understand is the importance of taking sugar out of your diet, decreasing sugar, decreasing the amount of carbohydrates that you are consuming. That is crucial to your healing because sugar is a toxin in any form. Your body doesn't have a mind that says, hey, that was a banana. Oh my goodness, that was a kiwi. Oh my goodness, that was a cupcake. Your body doesn't have that gauge. Your body says, ooh wee, this is sugar. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to process more than this teaspoon of sugar. Last thing I want you to know, no question about this, is that there are two essential macronutrients. Those macronutrients are protein and fat. That's all your body needs in order to thrive, right? I know the big question, do I need fiber? No, your body does not need fiber. Will fiber make you poop? It will. Do you need it to poop? You do not, right? The only reason why fiber in vegetables make you poop, and we've been taught that that is a way to regulate our bowels. Really, that's not what's happening. It is because it is a foreign thing in your body, and your body is trying to get rid of it immediately. When you are a meat eater, your body is absorbing those nutrients. You're never going to find meat in your toilet. It's just not going to happen. And here's the secret to consuming fat. The thing is, fat never spikes insulin. You are trying to become insulin sensitive. So the fat that you're eating bypasses insulin. You can eat it all you want. It is not going to spike insulin. Protein is going to have a moderate spike. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, in any form, if you have a glucose monitor, you will see that you are going to be spiked. Now, I have talked about Bewindi, and I am going to turn it over to her so she can share. Bewindi came to me, did a 90-day metabolic makeover. The reason why we say 90 days is because the A1C is a 90-day, a 3-month average of how blood sugar and fasting insulin has been working in your body. Bewindi has a story to tell. It did not start with me. I'm thankful for being able to be a part of her journey and watch her journey go to a whole nother level as a result of working with me. The key, I believe, is that Bewindi chose to be a carnivore over these 90 days. And again, not only did she change the trajectory of her health and her healing, I have watched her change the trajectory of her family, the conversations that we continue to have. She's impacting her community. She's having conversations with family members. So it is in her now, and now it is spreading. It's like the song says, everything attached to me wins. And that's what Bewindi is doing, is having everything that attached to her win. So I'm going to turn it over to Bewindi and allow Bewindi to tell us a little bit more about her, and I'll come back later as a part of a panel. Thank you, Bewindi, for being here. Thank you for trusting me on your journey. I'm super elated and proud of you, and I look forward to hearing your story.
Awesome. Can am I clear? Am I coming through clear?
Your audio is great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, DeNitra. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you, Robin, for allowing me to be here, and Giselle for allowing me to be here. My journey of weight issues started in childhood. I would say to anybody, I packed on weight, and it became a shield to deal with hurt and childhood pain. And food became a comfort. Ever since I was in the Caribbean, I'm from St. Lucia, and all we ate was rice and vegetables, ground vegetables, starchy foods. And the journey continued. And I became a dieter. Even in my adulthood, I became a dieter. I tried different things. I have tried vegan, I've tried vegetarian, I've tried Weight Watchers, I've tried Nutrisystem, I've tried pills, I have tried Wegovy, I have tried so many things. In January, and let me say this, and even before, there was a period in my life when I was in my 20s, I was able to do the hardcore workouts, the Insanity, the personal trainers, the HIIT workouts, and I would lose weight, but I was not well on the inside. January 2024, I was at my highest of 370, and it was my decision to say, I choose to live. I will not continue in this way. And this was way before I met DeNitra. This was way before I even heard the word carnivore. Well, January 2024, at my highest weight of 370, I talked to my husband and say, I need help. And at the time, the idea of help was a medical intervention called a surgery. I did my research. I was not going to do the gastric bypass, but I decided to do the gastric sleeve, which is called the VSG for short. And with the support of my husband, I did that surgery on June 26, of 2024. And but that was not my approach to it. Was not a quick fix. My approach to it was, I am desperately seeking medical intervention because I cannot. At the time, I believed I cannot do this on my own. It was me screaming for help. What I wish would have been done differently, I wish I had met a DeNitra. I didn't meet a DeNitra until after that. And so with my decision to say, you know what, I'm going to do something about this, I committed to a consistent lifestyle of intermittent fasting. January 2024, I was down 20 to 40 pounds before surgery. And then after surgery, I continued to just follow the plan, eat the diet that the bariatric nutritionist suggested. They suggested protein, they suggested vegetables, they suggested fruit. And even then just continued to intermittent fast. And still I felt lost. I still felt, I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel nourished. And I just struggled with, how, of course, with bariatric surgery, you have digestive distress because they take out a certain almost 60%, 70% of your stomach. And so you are struggling with what to eat and how much to eat. And when you do eat, you have digestive distress. You're constantly throwing up. It wasn't always bad, but there were several weeks I just struggled with how to eat. What do I do? Even if the nutritionist was telling me what to eat, it was just a struggle. Now, do I regret getting the surgery? No, I don't. Would I have preferred not getting the surgery and meeting a metabolic health practitioner? Absolutely, yes. And so how has life changed? So on February 7th, in fact, let me back up for a second. January 2025, the Lord led me to an event. There was an event and DeNitra happened to be there, and she had about 15 minutes to educate people. And she brought the guns of education when it came to metabolic health. And immediately I decided, I don't know this woman, but she sounds like she's making some sense and I need her in my life. And so by February 7th, I booked a discovery call with her. And by the time we had to have our discovery call, I believe on February the 8th, she asked me, I want to say she made me, but no, she didn't make me do anything. But she asked me to enter my food journal for 3 days of eating. Y'all, I thought I was doing okay, right? I had counted calories. I was eating some fruits. I was a juicer. I juiced vegetables and fruit. I was making videos of my juicing. I thought I was doing good. When I turned in my food logs and we had our discovery call, it was DeNitra Davis, metabolic health practitioner, advocator, coach, educator, who helped me see, girl, sister, honey, we're only supposed to have 4 carbs. Is it 4? We're only supposed to, she'll correct me. We're only supposed to have about 4 carbs a day. And I was having about over 40 grams of carbs. DeNitra also taught me that carbs equals sugar. Now, I never heard that math. I thought you just counted calories. But DeNitra taught me that carbs equal sugar. So not only was I eating high sugar, juicing, going straight to my bloodstream, right? Fruits and smoothies and all kinds of things, right? Protein shakes, you name it. I was trying to do the right thing, the thing that people told me that I needed to do. The grain, the protein bars, all the things. But not knowing that I was adding more damage to my kidneys, more damage to my bodies. When I got done with the discovery call, I just locked in. I talked to my husband, he supported me, and I locked in and I went in full throttle. And I decided I am going to embrace this carnivore plan of just eating meat. The carnivore plan, as you've probably heard on the show, is basically beef, bacon, butter, and eggs. Cheese does not bother me as it bothers Robin. I'm so sorry, Robin, but I love cheese. I love cheese, so I get to eat a little bit of cheese for sure. But with this diet, let me just tell you really quickly what has been different in my life. So first of all, let me just back up. So I was able to get my labs. My labs confirmed that there was prediabetes. DeNitra was the first practitioner to help me understand, to help me realize that I had symptoms of pre-diabetic. My A1C indicated pre-diabetes, and of course there had been insulin resistance. And with that, I I noticed that as I, continue to embrace this journey, here are some examples of what I experienced as changes. Mental clarity. Y'all, I no longer have food noise. I know I don't know if y'all understand. Like, I no longer have food noise. People take Wegovy to shut off the food noise. People get on Ozempic to shut off the food noise. I'm not taking any injections. I don't take medications. I no longer have food noise. I also noticed that there was healing happening on the inside. The last time, if I can be as vulnerable and transparent, and I'm very open about my life, the last time I threw up was February 22nd. Then I threw up once on March 20th, and I have not thrown up again since then. There is healing happening on the inside of me. I also noticed that I continue to intermittent fast and fasting for longer, for 18 to 21 hours. I also noticed that I got involved in eating. These ladies haven't influenced me to eat beef fat. And so I have been diligent since April 29th. I have eaten beef fat every single day. I go to the store like a crackhead, calling ahead intentionally. Listen, I need some beef fat. It is part of my diet. I now understand what it means to eat until satiety, and I now understand how to look at food as fuel. I'm also able to master the fruit of self-control and discipline, that I can look at Snickers and no longer be tempted. I can look at, or somebody could have some other foods or fried foods and no longer be tempted. I get to create healthy, nutritious, nutrient-based foods for my family. I'm cooking more now than I've ever cooked in my life. I'm making meat muffins and shuffles and low carb, pancakes. I get to have fun. The other thing with this journey that I was able to do is really advocate for my family. Really, really share my heart with them and help them to get on the journey. We have a 6-year-old little boy. He's about to be 7 on the 13th, which is tomorrow. And I advocated, because of this program, I advocated for his labs. And that was a whole thing. But by identifying his labs at 6 years old indicated insulin resistance. And so we had a family meeting to help him see, baby, here's what insulin resistance means. And I explained it in a way that I thought made sense. If a doctor heard me, they'd be like, what did she say? But he got the message, and we shared in a way for him to understand why we cannot afford to eat some more cookies, why we cannot afford to eat mac and cheese. Because of working with DeNitra, my son has gone from wanting mac and cheese every single day, wanting tacos and chicken nuggets and fries and junk food, to asking for ground beef every single day. Because of this program, my son has gone from me packing Lunchables for school to packing ground beef in a thermos. My husband is working out religiously, consistently. He has released weight as well. And so our whole family is healing metabolically. My son's mood is better. I can say, son, it's time for a nap. When I used to say that, he used to just start crying. I could say, son, it's time for a nap time. And he understands directives, and he's more clear. And I've had to advocate by sending a letter to the school, sending a letter to the church. I pack his lunches to church and to school. And this is a journey. And we just decided that we're going to be different. We decided as a family that we're going to seek metabolic health. And we're not going to look like the Joneses. We may be criticized. This may be a journey, but we are in it for the long haul. So I'm just so excited to just be on this journey towards optimal health. I am so excited, and I'm looking forward to continue to experience more results as I continue to heal from insulin resistance and move towards insulin sensitivity. Thank y'all.
Oh, Bewindi, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing. I just want to add one thing with Bewindi. I watched her literally in the beginning, because I have this, I can see, and so I knew she had a son. I heard a couple of discussions. It was really hard for her to even have the discussion. So to see her go from No. You're taking me too fast. I don't want to talk about that. Right? To writing letters to the school about dad and donuts, right? To writing letters to the church in these places that her son, we're talking about a 6-year-old who was eating Nutella and pizza rolls that is now singing songs about ground beef, who knows that if somebody puts some fries in front of him, he's looking like, wait, did we change? Did something change? Hold up, I got on board and these folks got these fries here. Don't be trying to, trick me. So I'm just so excited about her journey and the journey that she has her family on. I was an elementary school teacher. I know what sugar does to our children. And so to see a parent, really say, let me see the labs, right? And advocating for herself, even when she was asking for labs. If you remember, Bewindi, the doctor's nurse was like, who ordered these labs? Right? So learning to advocate for yourself, because doctors don't know it all. You have to be able to advocate for yourself. And I just want to say that, about Bewindi and her journey. And so just had to say that. Kudos to you for what you're doing with your family. I absolutely love it. Love it. Love it. So glad to be a part of it. And finding ways that your son can still enjoy himself. What's the name of the car, Bewindi, that he likes, that we were able to say, hey, would you like this toy car versus something to eat? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, so we talked about your favorite car is a McLaren, and how do you want your McLaren to drive? We wouldn't want to put sugar in our McLaren, right? Because if we put sugar in our McLaren, it's going to be slow. It's not going to function the way that it needs to function. So we even got him a couple McLarens for his birthday to remember that.
Absolutely. All right, Robin. Sorry, dear.
No problem. Thank you so much, Bewindi. And I did drop Bewindi's YouTube channel in the chat. And everybody can go and pick that up and go and subscribe to Bewindi's channel. So I'm talking a little bit from another perspective on healing. And so a lot of you have probably heard my story, but I struggled so much. I was the perpetual dieter. I was the person who was always on a diet. And I had these issues that I was dealing with that I literally thought I would never be rid of. I would always be dieting, going up and down. I'm going to just show one picture really quick here. I have one handy. So let me share this screen. Yeah, this one. So, I was on this diet roller coaster. This is me yo-yo dieting over the years. And so what you see here is just, this was me. I got married in 2008. Look how skinny I was, but look at my arms. I was like skinny, but not healthy, or what I would call skinny, because I was about 135 pounds in that picture. And then the next fall, this is me. The next picture is me, that very same year, but that fall. So I would go on these diets. I did all of the diets that you can think of. Like I did Weight Watchers, I did Atkins. And I thought Atkins was pretty amazing, but of course you weren't supposed to stay on Atkins for the long term. You were supposed to like increase the carb ladder. When I increased carbs, I always fell off and I would yo-yo. And so I would go up and down and up and down. And basically my entire life since the age of 11, I was yo-yo dieting. And so I really struggled with it. I kept messing up. I kept falling off the wagon because I feel like the food noise, and DeNitra Bewindi talked about that food noise, like not having to deal with the food noise anymore. I just thought this was a natural state of being, that you always think about food. You always talk about food. You're concerned with what you're going to be eating. and all the time. And I found out that that actually was not a normal state of being when I went on carnivore. So I struggled with it, and I felt bad about myself because I knew as soon as I ate something, I would be back on the roller coaster again. I would be gaining all my weight back. And it seemed like it'd take forever to get the weight off, but it would be immediately come back plus 10 more pounds or 10 of his friends. So this was the diet roller coaster that I was on. The other thing that I dealt with really struggled with was chronic eczema. So I had eczema flare ups. Even in my wedding picture where I was looking pretty good, I still had eczema around my eyes and around my mouth. And you can kind of see it here. I had eczema on my hands. You can see this picture. I was looking pretty small, but my hands were like blistered up. I'll show you a picture of that. So this is how that looked. I struggled with this look, and I think DeNitra mentioned this, right? The dark circles around the eyes, that this is an indicator of insulin resistance. And then around the mouth, insulin resistance. My face was swollen. I mean, I showed this picture here in the center to my kids, and they were like, "No, that is not you." I'm like, "Yes, it is. That is me. That's how I looked." And then you can see here in the palms of my hands, like, that's why I was holding my hands. I would always hold my hands like this because I didn't want to touch anything, because I would get infections in my hands and the skin would peel off. I lost my fingerprints. It was just really, really awful, horrible situation. So I tried to cover this up. I did makeup for a while. And I tried to cover this up with makeup, and I found this stuff called concealer, which was like divine. It was a gift from God, because I was able to cover up my dark circles around my eyes with concealer. And so I was embarrassed. I was ashamed to look like this. I felt like I was an ugly person. And I just did not feel good about myself when my skin looked like this. And then the last thing was the chronic anxiety. So my anxiety was very, very high. I want to talk a little bit about anxiety because basically I in about 2008, I went to the hospital with what I thought was a heart attack. And they kept me in the hospital overnight, and come to find out it was a panic attack. And that was the first time I had a panic attack, not the last time that I had a panic attack. I was very afraid to drive and cross over. So I've always had this kind of fear of heights, but I was afraid to drive over overpasses, and really, really struggled with it, to the point where I would almost literally stop before crossing the overpass. My anxiety was extreme. And so that was 2008. I went to the hospital. 2020, COVID hit, right? So I had been driving back and forth. I kind of overcame that a little bit, but I noticed that it started to get a little bit worse again. And then COVID hit, and I was in the house for 2 years. By the time that 2 years was over, I was not able to really get out anymore. I was not able to drive. And so I was to the point where I needed to be on medication. I contacted my doctor and said, "Hey, I need you to put me on something." She put me on Zoloft. During that time, I was on keto. I was on all the diets, medical weight loss. I did everything, right? So it wasn't, clearing up with like a keto diet, which you would think that it would. Like, if things are going to get better, they would get better on keto. Well, they didn't get better for me on keto. So I got on the Zoloft, but during that time I was watching Dr. Berry. Dr. Berry went from keto to carnivore, thriving. He did great on it, and he did not die, because I thought for sure, like, he's going to kill himself eating all this meat. He's going to kill himself eating all this meat. And, but I watched him, and he was doing so well. And so I thought I would try it. So, and that, on February 22nd, 2023 was when I tried it. And so, what I found was within the first 3 months, I was able to start weaning myself off of Zoloft. I had been on it for a year, and I was like, I don't think that I'm having the same problem anymore. I felt so much carnivore zen. I felt so calm in my mind. I felt this overall sense of well-being, and I decided to wean myself off of it. So I did wean myself off of it, and I found that my anxiety was down. So probably 80%. It was down about 80% after 3 months on carnivore. So here's the thing though. I went back last year, I went to on a carnivore cruise, and I had some mint. Now I haven't been eating plants, right? So I had not been eating plants for over a year, and I had mint in my water, just fresh mint in sparkling water. It tasted amazing, and I did that for 3 days, and I had a full blown panic attack after I got off the ship. And I was like, okay, so I can't have mint. So there are things that I still have to avoid, even that are kind of either allowed or you could do them. So anything that's plant related. So like black pepper, I can't tolerate black pepper. I can't tolerate very many vegetables. I've tried a few of them, like I tried broccoli, I tried cauliflower. That stuff causes my eczema to flare up. And the funny thing is that I tried lettuce. Now, lettuce is the most mundane thing. Like you would think that this would not cause anybody any problems. As soon as I had burger patties, and they put the burger patties on lettuce. I didn't even eat the lettuce. I just ate the patties that had sat on top of the lettuce, and my eczema flared up. So there's probably things that you are dealing with that are caused by the foods that you are eating, right? So I also, as Bewindi said, I'm not able to tolerate cheese. I'm not able to tolerate heavy cream. Those things are allowed on carnivore, but they do not work with my diet. So as DeNitra was saying, not everybody has to go all the way to carnivore. But what I recommend is that everybody try it, because you need to do the elimination and then see what are the issues that you're having, what kind of food related issues you're having. So that's what worked for me. And I'm discovering as I go along all the different foods that I just can't tolerate. So, regarding, this hopelessness that we feel around dieting and food and eating and, the struggle, Wendy talked about the Snicker bar and not, I used to love a payday bar. Payday was my jam, but I don't even think of payday bar as food anymore. Because if you look at the ingredients on the back of there, probably the only thing that's food in there is the nuts that's on the outside of the bar. And so, you don't, you will be rid of that food noise, the thing that tells you that I must have potato chips. I think who was talking about fat? Was that Be Wendy that was talking about the fat? We eating fat like popcorn, y'all. It's so good. Beef, crispy, crunchy. It's delicious, and it gives you that snacking vibe. If you need a snacking vibe. So what I would say to a person who's feeling hopeless and feeling like I'm on the yo-yo diet roller coaster, I'm dealing with issues. I don't even understand what is happening with my body. Like I'm struggling with these aches, pains. I'm struggling with these autoimmune conditions. You know, I would say show up for yourself. You should try this, because all of the things that I never would have thought it was related to the food. I did not think that. In fact, when I went to the dermatologist and I told them, I think I'm having an issue with milk or cream or something, it's not food related. Well, comes to find out, it actually is food related. And you can heal. You can lose weight. But I always say about this way of eating that it's not all about that necessarily. Although you will lose weight if your body needs to lose weight. It's about the healing. The healing is the most profound thing. Losing that brain fog that you didn't even know that you had until it goes away, and it's like, oh my God, I can think straight. And all of the things that you may not need to deal with in the future if you change your diet today. So, you can heal. My journey doesn't look like everybody's journey. Some people can have a little bit of pickles. Some people can have a little bit of olives. Some people can have a little bit of this or that. But I am a person who has extreme food sensitivity for some reason. In way, I think it's good and bad. In some ways, I'm thankful that I can't have cheese because cheese is highly addictive and it's easy to overeat it. But when I eat cheese, my hands blister, my hands boil from the inside out. So it's like not worth having. And so, anyway, we're going to go into a panel. Y'all ready?
Just before we do that, Robin, I want to say two things. And thank you for sharing your story. Every time I hear it just a little bit different. And I learn more about your healing journey. I love the way you said, this way of eating, taking the sugars out is helpful to everybody, but we all have entered into different places. And sometimes it takes those sensitivities, because that's essentially what's happening. I say this to you often, is that your body is becoming more insulin sensitive. So it speaks louder, like, hey, I don't want that. Don't give me that. I'm healing you. Let that be healed. Right? One thing I want to add with Bewindi is that one of the things that Bewindi also picked up was doing steps. So in this group, we do a 14,400 step challenge. Bewindi is a professional woman. She works telehealth and she sits a lot. So that was one of the things that we uncovered in the Metabolic Makeover, was that her movement was not a lot. And so if you follow Bewindi now on any of her social medias, Bewindi does not take a day off. If it means walking in her house, she is going to get her steps in. And so again, these are the things that we uncover. I often say that what's going on in our body should not be a mystery, but there's a gap in knowledge. And what we've tried to do was help fill the gaps for Bewindi. I do have two more pictures and then we can go into the panel discussion that I want to share of Bewindi. And we're going to close that out and just be super grateful for her being here and showing up. And so one of them is Bewindi and I together. When we first kind of met, we were out at an event. We took a selfie together, and looking at both of our transformations, where these subtle changes and this inflammation is continuing to decrease in us. And so this is a daily journey that we're on to continue to release inflammation. And then lastly, Bewindi did finish her 90-day metabolic makeover. She is metabolically made over. And I don't know if I can make that bigger. So her parting prize, I don't know if you all can see it, was a cutting board, because as carnivores, we cut a lot of meat. We eat off of cutting boards. And it literally is a cutting board on behalf of Nutritional Knowledge that gives her last name, but it also included her and her family. It's her son and her husband. And then also, she's a faithful servant of the Lord, says that wherever she goes. And so, and she has a bougie salt shaker cover as well. So Bewindi, I just want to say thank you to you for trusting the process. And I've heard you also say that this is a lifelong journey for you. So Robin, I don't know if you have any questions for the panel or any closing. Yeah, all right.
So, what is one myth? I would ask each of you to answer this question. What is one myth about healing or carnivore that you want to bust? I'm going to start with Bewindi, if you don't mind.
That meat will raise my blood pressure and increase my cholesterol. And I know part of that is not a myth, like your cholesterol will naturally increase. But through working with DeNitra, my PCP was getting a little bit low. Oh, your cholesterol is high. But DeNitra encouraged me to go and get a CAC. And a CAC is a coronary artery calcium score. I may have that wrong. But with that test, it was able to, even the tech was like, the tech said, I wish every person over 30 would come and get this test, because normally it's too late. People find out they have a lot of blockage around their heart. A healthy CAC score is a 0. Mine is a 0. And so the myth is that meat is going to somehow be too much. It's going to raise my blood pressure. It's bad for me. It's going to raise my cholesterol. But here I am. I have a healthy CAC score.
Thank you, Bewindi. All right, DeNitra, what is one myth about healing or carnivore that you want to bust?
Yeah, so for me, it's the salt. It is people telling us that salt, again, is going to raise blood pressure. You can't eat too much salt, stay off the salt. I remember buying Miss Dash type stuff so that I wouldn't have too much salt. And now I know that my body craves salt. When I take all of the preservatives out, my body is craving salt. And when you go to the hospital, when you're dehydrated, that's the first thing they do is put you on a saline drip, which is salt. And so I also say that, the Bible says we the salt of the earth. So wow, how can that be bad? And so that was the myth that really turned around for me, is that all I needed was salt. It's all I season with now. I don't use any other seasonings besides salt. And so I try to encourage people, eat salt. You got to get a quality salt. The salt at the restaurants on the table, the one with the little umbrella, that salt has sugar. You should not be eating that salt. This is where we have to read ingredients. But a quality salt is really healthy for you. It helps you with hydration. Remember, carbohydrates impact your hydration. It sucks the fluids out of you. That's what sugar does. All right. There's a question from Robin in the chat.
What would you do to a community outreach to encourage carnivorism? I live outside of a good-sized city for Iowa of 80,000.
Is that to any of us? Well, so for me, this is what we do. I'm always looking for people to speak to. Robin recently had an event in her city, at her church. We were there speaking. If you are a carnivore, start the conversation. If you are trying to put on your own event and invite people, educate them. The problem is the gap in knowledge. When Bewindi is speaking, when I'm speaking, we just didn't know, right? I used to call myself, I still call myself ignorant and inflamed. All right. I was inflamed because I was ignorant. And so at some point we have to give that knowledge. So Simpson, I would say if you are putting on this event as an outreach is tell people, try it for a season. Tell them if you are a carnivore and you're doing it, tell them about your results. Robin, I don't know, you can add to that. I know you have some things going on in your city that's been helpful.
Yeah, so we recently had a women's event in my city, and we did have DeNitra. She was coming, so I was like, "You're gonna have to speak." And so she had an opportunity to speak to my church at my church event. I would recommend, like, if you want to do a community outreach, I think that's great. Like for me, I'm doing a meetup this summer, August 30th. If anybody wants to come to Kalamazoo, Michigan, we'll be having a meetup here. I'm very excited about it. And, and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about eliminating sugar from your diet. Because that's really the bottom line of what it is that we're trying to do, is we really need to eliminate as much sugar as we can from our diets. And we know that, that sugar is a problem for us. So,
Bewindi has something that she wanted to add to that. Even if not big community, just some things that you may be doing to spread the word.
I don't have anything specific. I know she's asking specific to Iowa. I think, if there's a saying, if you're looking for a change, I'm probably going to mess this quote up, but being the change. And so what can I do, Simpson, on a small scale? And whether, one thing DeNitra says is reach one, teach one. And so how can I start for you? It may be starting on your social media platforms. It may be creating a YouTube channel and just sharing. It may be joining. There's probably another carnivore. There has to be another carnivore in Iowa. There may be some carnivore groups that you can find specific to your city. But that's a very good question. Is definitely, what can I do in my sphere of influence to be able to sound the alarm and to be able to stick and to be able to share and just be a good example of what it means of somebody who chooses the proper human diet and not continuing the standard human diet, which makes us sad because it's a sad diet.
Right. So I want to say this because one of the ladies that's in our Marco Polo group does this, and I think she has a business card. And she does pass that business card out, and it has a list of all of the doctors and influencers that she thinks are, voices in the carnivore space that people should watch. So, people like Dr. Berry, Dr. Tony Hampton, Dr. Chafee, among others. And so she created a business card, and she passes that card out to people. And encourages them to go and take a look for themselves at some of these influencers. So that might be another thing that you could do. Have another
and the last thing
comment
you could do is and send them some of these videos. Maybe a place to start as well. It may, start with just a few of you. Robin, can you mention the group that you have in your city now that's working toward carnivore?
Sure. Yeah. So the outcome of my women's conference was that we have had a number of people who have actually started carnivore. I had let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 people so far who have started. They each started out with a 7-day challenge. We put that 7-day challenge out here a couple of weeks ago, and they all started on that 7-day challenge, but have all continued for at least a second or maybe a third week. So it's really very cool. And that came out of, I've been talking about it for 2.5 years almost. But DeNitra came and they was like, ooh, let's go.
I told Robin that the Bible says one plants and one waters and God gives the increase. We all in this thing together. So
right.
Yeah.
So I have two comments here that I want to bring up. I know we're like over time, but Darlene is saying, I was talking with my sister in Michigan and we disagree greatly about me being a meat eater. She's the older sibling and feels that if I'm carnivore, I should be in better health. So there's lots of questions that I have for you, Darlene, related to what it is that you're eating. How long have you been carnivore? What kind of health-related issues did you have before you started carnivore? So if you want to have a conversation on the side, you can email me. I'm going to put my email up. I'll put my email in the chat. But yes, so healing takes time, and I'm not sure. I think, Darlene, that you have been doing carnivore for a while. I would be interested to know if what else are you eating? Are you eating anything other than meat? Are you eating red meat, fatty red meat? So there's lots of questions that I have that come along with your comment here. So I'm gonna put my email in the chat so you can email me. Any comments on this, ladies?
I agree with you that healing takes time and healing isn't pretty. So, of course, we show our cute before and after pictures, the best ones that we can find, considering, right? But healing isn't pretty. Like, it doesn't smell good. I mean, we're inflamed. Inflammation it's dirty business, right? The whole goal is for us to clean up. So I think the fact that you are a meat eater, you will start to see some indications of that. But remember that the work starts on the inside out. Your body is releasing those toxins off of your organs first, is where you want the healing. So when we get on the scale and the scale's not moving, that work is happening on the inside. So again, as Bewindi has said, the way that I am saying is, hey, just continue to trust the process. Continue to trust them.
Absolutely.
And the non-scale victories are the best. Document those things that feel better. When I sent Bewindi the pictures of her face, it was like, oh, I see a difference, right? And these are things that are happening every day that we usually don't pay attention to so much. Thanks,
All
Robin.
right. Last question. Do you recommend taking apple cider vinegar with lemon juice in the morning on an empty stomach to help lower blood pressure and or blood sugar? I don't.
No, absolutely not. I don't recommend taking it at all, yet alone on an empty stomach. What my questions would be is what are your labs saying relative to blood pressure? What are your labs saying relative to blood sugar? And if you are insulin resistant, then what we should be doing is taking out the sugars. So whatever sugars you're eating that are causing you to be hyperinsulinemic, which means you run high sugar, that's where you want to start. Apple cider vinegar, lemon juice. I have a family member who had a stroke the same day they took some apple cider vinegar. I'm not saying it's the causation, but perhaps it is correlation, right? It's all from a plant. Your body doesn't need to be stripped like that. Eat fatty red meats. That's what's going to help lower your blood pressure and your blood sugar. You can get a 2-for-1 with a whole ribeye and some beef fat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I think we're getting ready to wrap it up, ladies. So, Bewindi, I just want you to tell people. I did drop your YouTube channel in the chat, but can you tell people where else they can find you?
Yes, absolutely. I am empowered to serve, empowered the number 2 serve on IG, be Wendy Jackson on Facebook. I'm also on TikTok. I believe Empowered to Empower. If you just Google be Wendy Jackson, I'm gonna come up a lot of places for sure.
Thank you so much for being with us, Bewindi. And DeNitra, any final words before we close it out?
I'm going to give the final words to Bewindi tonight. And thank you again for being here.
Yeah. So what I would share, I'm sure there may be somebody listening and they're thinking, you know what, I have met with a bariatric doctor. I'm thinking about doing the VSG. I am desperately looking for help. And the only thing that they feel like is I've got to have surgery. I would just say before you go that route, find you a metabolic health practitioner. Connect with DeNitra, connect with Robin, connect with Hey Sister Girl group. It is a free community. Just talk to somebody like that with the expertise and experience and the compassion for your health to be able to help you see and understand how food can heal your body before any medical intervention. And then also get to learn about insulin resistance because unfortunately, no disrespect, doctors are not necessarily looking for those markers. They're not necessarily talking about insulin resistance. But find out and educate yourself about those things first before you go the distance of seeking surgical intervention or even medical injections and things of that nature.
Thank you, Bewindi. Robin?
All right, you guys, we'll see you back. Same place, same time next week. See you next Monday. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank y'all.